Welcome on in. Chicago Fire Weekly is presented by CIBC, the official bank of your Chicago Fire. We are live at the Heineken Pub 97, as we are each and every week here during the season. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio, Frank Klopas here to talk about the playoffs. The last 3 seasons, I've done the Chicago Fire Weekly show on radio. You guys did it with me last year. We never had a playoff preview. We've got one this year. Frank, it feels so much better than last year.
Look at the smiles.
Yes.
We even got Paul to smile. Look at that. He's smiling today. No, but it's great. I mean, it's amazing when you think about it. You know, the season at this point, it seems like he went by so quickly, but you're right. I mean, it's exciting time for all of us, for us covering the team, for the club. I think it's a great season, you know, and I think locking down 3rd place and that, home field in the playoffs is huge. We're all smiling. It's great to be doing a show and looking forward to this big game.
Listen, there hasn't been playoffs in Chicago in far too long, and I'm glad I moved back here about a year and a half ago now, and playoff soccer's back. So you're welcome. You're welcome.
Well, brought some luck. It didn't happen last year. I was thinking we got to send him back to Orlando, but
so there's a
I wanted you to earn it, Frank. You know,
so it's a package deal. Nelson and Pano and you.
That's right.
Okay, so all 3 of you came in last year. You had to learn a little bit.
Well, I tried to give my pointers here and there where I could on this show, and if you listen in the show, you know what I was saying, right?
Yeah, and look at it, 55 points, 16, 11, and 7, the 4th best season in club history, and making the postseason. You have a home game, and like you had just mentioned, being at home is a key. 12, 2, and 3 at home this year. That's great to have the Red Bulls coming to Toyota Park.
No, I agree with you, and I think that's what you play for. And I think, there were moments of the season when we talked about it. The team was playing so consistent. Mm-hmm. They really didn't have a setback, and then all of a sudden you have some injuries. They come back after the break. Fatigue kind of sets in a long season like that, but I think they've rebounded well. I think, earning that look, you have the 3rd spot for a reason because you're a very good team throughout the season, and I think that's well deserved, and I think it's great. They put themselves in a great spot, and especially having this game at home where they've been, it's been almost like a fortress there. 12, 2, and 3 at home. They've been almost unbeatable there, so it's great to be able to finish the season and host that game at home against a good team.
Yeah. Well, look, I was talking to somebody earlier today about the building process in MLS, and like me, this person feels like it really is a 3-year process, and we were talking about Atlanta, and they were saying Atlanta kind of was able to accelerate its process by spending $15 million in transfer fees, and but they still feel like Atlanta's building. And I look at the Chicago team, and they put in the money this year to bring in some really strong pieces, Bastian Schweinsteiger, Nemanja Nikolic, Juninho, and Dax McCarty being the big 4. But I think what we saw is that this is still part of a process, and you saw this team grow up and start to learn a little bit more about how to win in this league over the course of the season. Like you said, they started off playing really well. They had that down point of the year, and we said it back then, and I'll say it again now. Every team in MLS goes through these down periods. It's whether or not you can pull yourself out of them. Not every team can. FC Dallas is an example this year of a team that didn't have the leadership to get out of that swoon and didn't make the playoffs. This Fire team, they battled out of it. They were able to recover and like you said, finish 3rd, and I think that's growth. Mm-hmm. And that's part of this building process too. No matter what happens tomorrow night, I think you can say that there's been progress this year that you can build upon for this playoffs, and you can build upon for next year as well.
Yeah, and then I think I agree with Paul, and I think you feel very good about the process going forward because of just a very good base that they had. They had a good base before the season started. They made some very good moves. And I think it's very difficult in this league when you say, okay, I need to bring 4 players, and I can almost like they've hit like a bullseye on almost 4 players. Their ability now to bring a guy like McCarty, Juninho with his experience, Bastian Schweinsteiger, and on top of it, you needed a goal scorer, and you went out, and you got one, you paid the money for it, and the guy delivered. But it's also the players and the team that you build around in order to make him be successful.
And you look at that, talk about that. Going into this year, you looked at the base that was coming out of year 1 into year 2. They brought in Kappelhoff, who I think has been very, very good this year. Michael DeLue was a really important player. Unfortunately, we saw him go down with the ACL injury. They brought in DeLue, and then they brought over they had some carryover pieces as well. Matt Polster, they brought in Brandon Vincent in the draft, and of course, David Accam. So you come into this year with a base of a solid 5. You add in 3 or 4 more players. Now you have a solid base, 9, 10 guys, plus a few in depth. And you think, okay, now we have a really strong core to build depth off of. And that's the next step of being able to compete day in, day out for an entire season, not have as many lulls, and to be ready to go and healthy for the postseason. I think that's where year 3 kicks in. But for now, you're getting healthy. You've got some guys back for the postseason, and you think you have enough to make a push and a home playoff game to do it.
Well, and the thing is, too, Frank, and having coached in this league, you had some young players with Polster and Vincent, but then you bring in not only veterans, but the right veterans. Because sometimes you can bring veterans in, they don't mesh with the young guys. It seems like the guys that were here, especially McCarty and Basti and Janino, they all mix very well with this team.
And I think that's the key. I think it's the kind of, yes, you need quality, but also the right kind of quality, the right kind of character and personality. And I think that's what they've done. But also I think the guys now, like Vincent, sometimes you'll wonder the second year what that's going to be like. And I think you've seen a big step forward from Vincent. Polster playing on the right side, so I think that's a positive also to see.
A lot more to talk about. We'll talk about Nemanja Nikolic, the Golden Boot winner. But we want to get you on out to Toyota Park as the playoffs begin tomorrow night, Wednesday at Toyota Park, as it's the knockout round. The New York Red Bulls, Jesse Marsh and Company in town. Get your tickets at chicago-fire.com/tickets, or you can call 888 MLS Fire. Get on out there. A 7:30 start tomorrow night. We come back. We'll hear from Dax McCarty, who's playing against his former team in the postseason. We'll also talk more about the Fire as they get ready for the knockout round tomorrow night. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
Heineken tastes perfect every single time, and that doesn't happen by accident. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster, almost as long as it took me to master this look.
She came to meet a man. She found an angel. What's his name now?
Still practicing. It takes 15 years to become a Heineken brewmaster. There's more behind the star.
The heat will wear you out real quick. And we've been through some hot ones. It's very physical. You gotta take care of your body and stay hydrated because every moment matters. That's why I drink Advocare Rehydrate. I've got a job to do.
Why would you go out of your way and wander around a warehouse for paint when you can just swing by your local Ace? Ace has top-rated paint like Valspar, can match any color, and mixes it with something that's hard to find. Award-winning service, because the way we see it, if anyone is going to go out of their way,
it should be us.
It's the Ace Extra Mile promise. If it ever takes more than one trip to complete your paint project, we'll bring you what you need, and delivery is free.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
Welcome back in Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC, as we're getting you ready for the playoffs. They begin Wednesday night at Toyota Park. The New York Red Bulls coming to town, and we think New York Red Bulls in the past, you think Dax McCarty. Well, now Dax McCarty, a member of the Chicago Fire, and Dax was asked if this Fire team is ready for the postseason.
Yeah, I think we are. It's what you play the whole season for. Obviously, if you don't get a chance to win the Open Cup or win the Supporters Shield, you got nothing left. This is all you have. And so I think a goal of ours going into the season was make the playoffs. That's the bare minimum requirement for success. And we've accomplished that goal. And now your goals have to reset. Now that we're in the playoffs, we're going to go for it. And I think there's no other way to look at it. Play like there's no tomorrow. Use any cliche that you want. But at the end of the day, there's only going to be one team happy at the end of the season, and that's the team holding the MLS Cup. So 12 teams qualify. It's a low bar, and we're happy that we've turned the season around. from the past couple years to what we've accomplished this year. But again, I mean, you're not in this business to just make the playoffs and appreciate it. You're in this business to win championships, and I know that this club is really anxious and eager to prove ourselves on the highest stage.
How does the game change in the playoffs? Is it more physical, tactically different?
It's incredibly different in every sense of the way. I can't, I can't stress that enough. The little details, they become even finer. The margin between winning and losing is so thin that, the team that is sharper on the day, the team that is more physical on the day, the team that works harder on the day, that's usually the team that's going to give themselves the best chance to win. Now, you have to obviously add in quality, to go along with that. But playoff games are not like regular season games. They're just not. And then add on to that the fact that it's one game in 90 minutes for, the right to advance. And that just amplifies everything even bigger. So for me, everything you said, the physicality, the effort, the heart, the energy, all that has to be at an incredibly high level. Because if it's not, especially playing against a team like the Red Bulls, you're in for a really rough night.
We know that you asked Dax McCarty a question or two, and it's going to go on for a little while. He's very thorough, but he brought up a lot of good points. He said their goal this year, the Chicago Fire, was to make the playoffs. When you have a team that was last in all the points last year, not an easy goal. He did bring up that it's a low bar with 12 teams making the postseason. But Frank, as you mentioned, they built, they became better, they had a nice mixture of players, and they played well enough to get a home playoff game.
Listen, I think that's the regular season goal from the team. You want to be above the red line, which they were. They're a very good team. They proved that. But obviously, once you get into this situation, I think the objectives and goals change for players. When you look at this roster, there's a lot of experience and guys that have been in, they've won championships all over the world. I think they've been in difficult matches. So believe me, in their mind right now is that let's make sure that we're one of those finalists playing for an MLS Cup, and that's what it's all about.
Well, first I want to just applaud Dax on growing out the playoff beard. I think that's very important. It's a low temperature, so my beard is coming back out as well. So credit to Dax McCarty on that. And it's a red beard, so extra points for that. No, I think obviously, when you have 12 teams making the playoffs out of 22, you can say it's a low bar, and I understand that argument as well. However, when you're a team and a franchise that's missed the playoffs as many years in a row as the Fire have, that bar is a little bit higher to get to, because you're not just fighting this season and your opponents on the field. You're fighting history, you're fighting mentality, you're fighting the negativity that you're trying to rid a club of. And so I think some props are due in that level as well. I also think that, this is a team, we talked about it last time, and that's growing. And so, yes, you have Dax McCarty and Juninho, who have played in the postseason before. Juninho's won multiple MLS Cups. Arturo Alvarez, I think he went to the playoffs with San Jose when he was first in the league. But you've got a lot of guys, Bastian Schweinsteiger, World Cup final, Champions League final. He doesn't need to be told anything about playoffs. Brandon Vincent, Matt Polster, Joao Myra, Jonathan Campbell, Nemanja Nikolic, David Akam, Georgi Mihailovic. Go down every single other person on this roster. This is a first for them. So there is going to be an element, too, where they need to recognize the difference between the regular season and the playoffs.
Yes, but having said that, I agree. You can talk about being a low bar, but let's look at the teams that didn't make it. If you look at a team like Montreal last year that played for the conference final, and now they're out of the playoffs. So you also have to look at it and say that it's not that easy to be consistent throughout the whole season. The key is they're there now. You want that sustained success. We talked about it, to be a team that you're above that red line every year, and then you're competing for a championship, because that's what they put themselves into. There's a lot of experience, and you're right. Some guys that are tasting this for the first time. So I think that you can grow from this and you learn from the experience. But I tell you, when you get in a moment like that in a situation, those guys understand that, you can't take it for granted. It's not like you can say, I'm going to be here next year again.
Right.
So let me tell you something, that game tomorrow, there's going to be everything on that line for them to make sure that they win and they move forward.
You've coached in the playoffs before. How different is it as far as pace and intensity that you could tell? You played in the playoffs, obviously.
It's a lot different. It's a lot different. Obviously, I went in, I was in a similar situation. We lost at home to Houston, and sometimes I felt that we had a lot of chances. We pushed the game. We went behind early, and then, the intensity, the commitment, the focus, the way things get tighter, because, you know, it's one game and you're out in a situation like this. So everything gets ramped up to another level, but it's good in a situation like the Fire that you can rely on those experienced players that have been there before to carry you through.
Yeah, one of the things I liked hearing this week was Bastian Schweinsteiger. They asked him about the playoffs and everything else, and obviously everywhere else they have a one table. He said, listen, we're finished third in the table. We're playing Champions League. He said, so you look at what the team did this year, you have to be happy with their success.
100%. We can talk at another time. I'm just saying, you know what, why not reward the teams that do really well, but then the teams that don't do well, then you go out and then you reward them with first picks, you reward them with money. I think that's, for me, something that has to change to make sure that every game there's more on the line. But sure, look at Paul is smiling.
Oh, yeah,
that's going to be.
I got some ideas.
Yeah.
I got some ideas.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. We come back, we're going to take a look at the Chicago Fire and what they need to do when they start the playoffs on Wednesday. They take on the New York Red Bulls. It's a knockout round game, one game, and that's it. At Toyota Park, 7:30 start. We'll talk about the Fire and what they can bring on to the Red Bulls. We come back. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
It's Ford SUV season, so be ready with features designed to detect what they don't.
Stop. Sorry. It's okay.
That's Ford, and that's how you become America's most trusted brand of SUVs. During SUV season, get $4,800 cash back on Explorer, $4,500 on Edge, or $4,250 on Escape. That's big cash back on Ford's lineup of sport utilities or lease Escape for $199 a month during SUV season at your local Ford stores.
At Discount Tire, we know how hard it is to stay fit. You might pump iron like a pro or even do push-ups with perfect form. Question is, are your tires healthy too? Don't sweat it. Visit your local Discount Tire for a tire health checkup. And if you need them, you can count on us to help you get the right tire for your needs and your budget. Discount Tire, America's neighborhood tire store.
Domino's? 2 large pepperoni pizzas, please.
Now you can earn Domino's Piece of the Pie rewards points when you order by phone. And when you order online, you'll get points too. Now you can even earn points when you order in store. We make it easy for you to earn free pizza. Only Domino's lets you earn any way you order.
You got the Cubs and you got the White Sox. And those people don't like each other. And then you bring up the Hawks, everybody gives hugs, and it's best friends.
Unifies the city.
Kind of like a family thing we do together.
To me, it's my childhood.
Go Hawks!
And it doesn't matter your walk of life, you're a Hawks fan, everybody's your friend.
They're Chicagoans, and they've just embraced this city, and we've embraced them, and we just love our Blackhawks.
The home for the Blackhawks. The home for the fans. With live pre and post before and after every game. NBC Sports, Chicago.
Welcome back in Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC. This is Fire Field Vision, as it is powered by NovaCare. The Chicago Fire getting ready to take on the New York Red Bulls. They met twice during the regular season, early in April, a 2-1 loss in New York, and then here a 1-1 draw all the way in September. Are there things that when these teams look at this game, they look at matchups and things maybe that they can do better against New York this week?
Listen, I just feel when you play this team, when you go back to the early game in April, I think that the Fire dominated the middle of the field. I think with Dak, Schweinsteiger, and Juninho, they control the game. I know that they lost, but I felt for me that they had a very good game that day. And Paul, you know, when you play against this team, I think for me, the movement off the ball is very important because I think the players need to have options. It's a team that's going to press. They're going to high press. They're going to bring a lot of energy in the field. So being good with the ball, being able to play quick out of that pressure, switching the point of attack. And I think the advantage for the Fire is going to be centrally because they're going to have that advantage depending on how they play. And then that matchup with Dax against Sasha Kljestan and Felipe, those two players have to mark 3 in the middle. So I think their ability now to overload the middle, control the game centrally, and then at times, you know, swing it out wide where they can get, you know, overloads with Vincent getting forward, with Polster getting forward is going to be a key. And then also I think, Paul, in depth, in transition, when they play a high line, the movement now of Nikolic, of Solinek, or even of Akam to look to get behind them, the opportunities will be there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, this is a game where you need and you want Schweinsteiger back and you want Juninho back because of exactly what you talked about. When you play against a pressing team, this is what Red Bulls do. They press high. They wait for moments when the ball goes wide. They press very quickly and try to win the ball and then score in transition. They're not great at building up in their attack.
Yep.
So this is how they want to beat you. To have 3 guys that are not going to lose the ball easily is very, very important. And those are 3 guys who are not intimidated by pressure on the ball. You can play the ball to Schweinsteiger, and he can have 2 guys on his back. He's not going to lose it.
Yep.
That's what he's known for. I mean, we laughed at one point earlier this year because he was looking to get the ball, and I think it was like Duty or something wasn't playing it to him because there was a guy within 2 or 3 yards. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
Play him the ball. He knows how to play out of pressure. But it's not just holding the ball out of pressure. It's exactly what Frank talked about, the movement of those 3 so that when the ball goes to Vincent or Polster, they're already in the right spot so that Vincent can play a one-time ball out of that pressure. And then, and this is the most important part, when they receive that ball, they already know where they're going to go with it. Because when the Red Bulls do press like that, they're pulling guys like Mule out, they're pulling guys like Royer up and out, which means that they're isolated one-on-one usually on the wings. That's a quick ball over the top to a guy like Akam in space one-on-one. I love that matchup. The Red Bulls are afraid of that matchup. It's the one thing Jesse Marsh said in media this week. He said, we have to know about Akam all the time. That's what those guys bring you.
I agree with you, but I think in the way that the Red Bulls, I think when you're going to see them press, I think they're going to come with energy, but they want to force the ball out wide because I think the way they play, this is where they have the numbers up situation. They want to force the ball down the side and make it predictable on that side. If it's on their right side where they have Davis, where they have Taylor Adams, and then they have most likely Murillo. So they're matched up 3v2 there. They want to deny the ball coming back centrally where I think that the Fire is going to have an ability to numbers up and they can play through them with the guys like Dax and, you know, hopefully Schweinsteiger is available or Juninho or even Mihailovic. I think he's been very good. So they want to make it predictable. They want to force the play out wide and they want to pressure. So the movement is key. When the ball goes out wide, if they cut off the middle, to have some options going forward, you know, whether it's Nikolic to feet, one check-in or a calm in depth, the Fire is going to have some opportunities against that back line because I think this is where the Red Bulls struggle a little bit.
Frank, when they made that switch, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the way through the season to whatever you want to call it, a 3-3-3-1, a 5-3-1, whatever you want to call it, 5-4-1, 6-3-1, however you want to call it. Tyler Adams moves from a central position out to a wing-back spot, and they like him high up the field, almost like another midfielder. That's why it's a 3-3-3-1 really in the shape. What does that mean? That means that space down the wing is there when you break pressure. There's 2 ways, like you said, to break that pressure. You either look to come inside to one of your midfielders who's hopefully showing, and you can make that pass. If they cut that pass off, this is where it's going to be critical for Brandon Vincent and Matt Polster to be watching tape this week and to say, if Tyler Adams is coming to pressure you and close you down with the midfielders, then you need to look at potentially playing that one-time ball down the sideline and see if you can find a player in space, whether it's David Akam and you're curling it straight down the side, or whether it's that ball over the top, like you said, where Nikolic can time his runs. But you have 3 center backs in the back line, and you should have 3 strikers there as well. And if you can get that ball in early, then that's going to be important. What you don't want is for Brandon Vincent or Polster to take 2 touches, because the moment by the time you're on that second touch, you've touched yourself into trouble. And you got to get the ball off the field, off your foot quickly.
Right, and I think is that if you're right, if you can get their center backs, Paul, on either side, if it's Murillo on one side or Perinel, who I think lacks a little bit of pace, and I think there's an opportunity for them to take advantage of that. If you stretch them out and then you have the ability of the 2 central midfielders, the 2 attacking midfielders, making those late runs, it's going to be hard for Felipe really to pick up both players. So that's why I think that if you can get out wide or you can get to the middle, switch the point of attack and have those late runs centrally, I think that the Fire is going to create some opportunities and problems for this back.
And I'm interested to see, Frank, the starting lineup and the options off the bench. If you do start with Juninho and Schweinsteiger and you win the middle of the field, late in the game you're bringing Arturo Alvarez out. You're bringing potentially a guy like Joey Calistri into the game. If you can keep this game tight, the way the Red Bulls play, how much energy they give out in the first hour of the game, can you start to stretch the back line a little bit with David Akam with some pace? And can you look to hit them a little quicker in transition? Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the last half hour of the game.
And my point I was going to say, this is where, you know, so much comes into the coach, and we don't know what's taking place, because if Schweinsteiger is ready, he's an experienced guy. He hasn't played in a month, so potentially, do you start him? Do you say, maybe this game could go into overtime? How long is he going to last? So those are some decisions that, that have to take place.
And also, does he play more in an attacking role as opposed to a defensive role? Because now you have him and McCarty at the same time.
I don't think so. I think he's the guy who drops in between and is on the ball more often than not. And you want Dax a little bit higher because I like Dax up against Sasha as much as possible defensively in the midfield and allow Schweinsteiger to be the guy who floats and gets on the ball.
We come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the Red Bulls and with the problems they pose for the Chicago Fire. Don't forget, playoffs begin tomorrow. The knockout round getting underway, 7:30 at Toyota Park. You can get your tickets at chicago-fire.com/tickets. Call 888-MLS-FIRE or come on out to Toyota Park. It's a 7:30 kick against the New York Red Bulls. The winner will advance to take on, if the Fire win, they will advance to take on NYCFC. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
The blades of a combat chopper spin at 380 RPMs. Not even close to an Echo trimmer. Now that's shock and awe. Power on and on.
If you have recently suffered an injury or had surgery, let the experts at NovaCare Rehabilitation get you back to an active lifestyle. Our comprehensive programs deliver the highest level of physical therapy, hand therapy, sports medicine, and work health rehabilitation. Our highly skilled therapists develop individualized treatment plans to exceed your expectations. So, don't live in pain. To request an appointment today, visit NovaCare.com. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
Don't let pain knock you out of the ring. Our hand, wrist, and elbow experts are pioneers worldwide. You need us in your corner. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today. After our minimally invasive spine surgery, 80% of golfers maintained or improved their handicap. Be treated by the pros to play more like a pro. Midwest Orthopedics at Rush. Make an appointment today.
Meet Jameson Caskmates, the newest member of our family. Triple distilled Irish whiskey, finished in craft stout barrels. The story of two neighbors, a distiller and a craft brewer, teaming up to create something new. The smoothness of Jameson and the character of a stout, together in one glass. So raise a glass to new tastes that become old favorites. Welcome Jameson Caskmates to the family.
What's more powerful than the winds of a Cat 5 hurricane? An Echo backpack blower. So, yeah, it'll clear a path. Power on and on.
Welcome back in. Chicago Fire Weekly is presented by CIBC. We are at the Heineken Pub 97 here at the CIBC Fire Pitch, getting you ready for the knockout round of the playoffs. The Fire taking on the New York Red Bulls. Fred Hubner along with Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez. And when you look at the Red Bulls, you got Jesse Marsh as their head coach. You have Chris Armas, their assistant coach. Dennis Hamlet is the sporting director. It's like you leave the Fire and you go to New York. And Jesse's a guy that he learned under Bob Bradley. And has he taken some of what he learned from Bradley and used it to make this Red Bulls team what they are?
Look, I'm sure he has. And I'm sure, I think he's evolved as a coach over the years, obviously. But, they're good friends and they still talk. And I'm sure that he seeks advice from someone that he respects a lot. But, listen, he's going to have this team fired up. I guarantee you. We joked last game that we were doing. I said they're probably going to start pressing from the locker room, you know. But when you play them, and Paul is right, it's a team that's going to bring a lot of energy. They're going to high press, and then they create a lot of their opportunities through mistakes. Once they win the ball, they get teams a little bit disorganized as they try to open up, and they try to take advantage of that, So that's not going to change. You know what you're going to expect from them. But I think if it's a team that if they're not up in the 60, 70 minute of the game, I think that they drop a little bit. I think there are moments where you can get at them. They give opportunities, but they're a fit team. So they still rely on their fitness late in the game. They feel that other teams will not be able to compete with them over 90 minutes. And it's good that they have Royer back because he's another guy in the field now. He's got, 12 goals, so getting him healthy and at the right moment, I think it's a plus for them.
Look, I mean, when we talk about creating opportunities out of turnovers in the final third, you have a forward in the box in Bradley Wright Phillips.
Yeah.
We like to praise Nemanja Nikolic, and we should. He's the Golden Boot winner, 24 goals. Bradley Wright Phillips is a guy who's been one of the most consistent goal scorers over a number of years that this league has ever seen. He holds the record tied for most goals in MLS history in a single season with 27. He's been a guy who's been there every single year he scores goals. So, the thing about the Red Bulls is doesn't matter what point of the game we're in, he's one of those guys who, he can score in the 90th minute when he hasn't touched the ball the rest of the game. So you have to be aware of him all of the time, I think. And then you're right. Now you have Royer on the outside. He's another guy who can create and score. And Sasha Kljestan has led this league in assists for 2 consecutive seasons. He might not be playing at the level he played the 2 previous years, but he's still a guy who can pick the right pass. He's still a guy that they're going to try to run things through whenever they can. And I still think that matchup between Sasha and Dax is going to be a big one in the midfield. But I really think the emphasis here for the Fire playing against New York, what New York is looking to do is wait till you play that ball wide to the fullbacks and they close quickly. And they try to win the ball right there, turn and get it into the box as fast as possible. The focus has to be on keeping the ball, being smart with that pass. If that pass goes out to the fullback, you have to have an option right away, whether it's a quick ball down the line or into midfield.
And I think for me, when I look at this Red Bull team, Paul, I think for me the way they're going to play, and I'm guessing, but I think the 3 in the back for me, I think they played sometimes with Lawrence in the back, one of the 3 on the left side, and Connor Lade. But I think Perinel comes in with Long and then Murillo. And I think Murillo probably is the best with playing out of the back. And I think Perinel comes in with those guys because from set pieces to defend a little bit better. And then I think they'll play Lawrence on the left side just to cover because I think Perinel struggles with pace. And I think that's a little bit, he provides cover for them. So I think the 3 across in the midfield for me, I think it'll be Lawrence, Felipe, Adams, like you say, will be the wing back. And then with Kljestan in front of them, Royer, Davis, and Phillips on top. So it's a team that's fit. And when we talk about forwards, you're right. I mean, this Phillips is not only he scores goals, but he's the first player that initiates that pressure. He lets kind of the ball go on either side, and then he, as a forward, he works extremely hard also off the ball to put that pressure. We always say it's great to have a forward that can do it not only offensively but defensively also and help his team.
One thing to watch in this game, I know the Fire haven't been great at scoring on set pieces. The Red Bulls have been terrible defending set pieces. It's an area that the Fire should try to take advantage of.
Quickly, one last thing, too. You say throughout the course of the year, Frank, we talk a lot about the first goal and how important the first goal is. Obviously, it sounds silly, but how important is the first goal in a knockout round of a playoff game?
It's huge, but look at the teams that have scored the first goals. They hardly lose, because I think that from a confidence standpoint, but also not so much from with the Red Bulls, because once you give up the first goal, they're going to press, they're going to win high. I think the opportunities, the Fire are dangerous in transition with the pace they have, but I think it's like you play a little bit different, and I think there's more confidence with the team. So it's very, especially the team at home. I think it's like a block. They get the first goal, it's hard to beat them.
That's a look at the New York Red Bulls, the Valspar Primer. Valspar, the official paint of your Chicago Fire. We come back. We'll take a look at the postseason. It gets underway, the Eastern Conference, Western Conference. We're talking about it right here at Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
How do you show up? Do you just bring it? Or do you bring it all?
Focus.
Third row like a pro. Get 4,000 purchase allowance on almost every 2017 GMC Acadia model when you finance through GM Financial. Or get this low mileage lease on this 2017 GMC Acadia SLE1 for around $289 per month.
Four Seasons, how can we help you?
It's the furnace! The old pile of scraps burning through my savings! Hurry!
Remain calm, we're on our way.
24-hour repair and same-day installation. Four Seasons can replace your furnace for as little as $17.95. Furnace and AC combos from $36.95. And take advantage of 0% interest financing for 5 years.
For all the right reasons, call 866-4 Seasons.
WeatherTech. What goes in the liner stays in the liner.
Laser measured for the perfect fit, front, back, and even up the sides. The ultimate protection for your vehicle. Order today at WeatherTech.com or visit our factory store in Bolingbrook. WeatherTech, proudly made in America.
I'm Jimmy. This is my definition of fresh since 1983.
Welcome back. Chicago Fire Weekly is presented by CIBC. We take a look at the postseason. The playoffs getting underway tomorrow with the Fire taking on the New York Red Bulls at Toyota Park. Get on out there, a 7:30 start. The winner, well, if the Chicago Fire wins, because they're the 3 seed, they know who they'll play. They'll play NYCFC in the next round of the playoffs. The winner of this goes to the conference semis. The other knockout game of the Eastern Conference is going to be interesting because not only has Atlanta had big crowds, now they're opening up the whole place, the Mercedes-Benz Arena.
Well, they've gone more than 70 twice in the regular season, and they'll try to sell out the place. I think they've been a little bit short of selling out the stadium. They've been around 71,400. I think they have set the MLS single season attendance record twice this year. They set the record for single season average attendance over the course of the season this year too. It's been a great success in Atlanta. I think any way you slice it, you look at it. But now they're in the playoffs. They're the first expansion team to be in the playoffs since the 2009 Seattle Sounders. I think they're the best expansion playoff team that we've seen since the 1998 Chicago Fire, which albeit it came in a different era. It came in when there were just 10 teams, and they were able to bring in a lot of players with European experience, national team experience. But this team is pretty stacked, and I really like this first-round matchup for them. I think it's going to be very difficult for Greg Berhalter and the crew, who are playing very good soccer, to go down to Atlanta and get a win. Greg's teams like to play, and I don't imagine that they're going to be any different going to Atlanta, but it's tough to play against this team, Frank.
It's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a great matchup. I think they're both very good teams. I think Columbus, has been playing extremely well, and we talked about earlier, Paul, about Higuain and the way he's almost stepped it to another level. It's just like a light switch went on, says, okay, it's time to perform now. We're getting ready for playoffs. But
he got a new contract.
He got
and
a
all
new
of a
contract.
Sudden, oh my goodness.
No, that helps. But at one point, you were looking at this Columbus team and you were thinking, okay, is this the team that's going to fall off? And I think Greg has done an incredible job with that team. They're a very good team. And I think tactically he's a very smart coach. He can change things up, and it's going to be a great matchup any way you slice it. And especially there with the atmosphere, it's going to be like, I tell you, most teams in Europe can look at that place and that atmosphere and say, man, this sport has come a long way in this country.
Yep, and I mean, Almiron's healthy. He changes that team when he's on the field. His vision, his passing ability, when he starts running at the back line, they have to make a decision every time he's on the ball. Do I step? Do I not step? If you step to him, he's capable of beating you with pace and with skill, or making that pass. If you don't step to him, he's capable of scoring from 25 yards and out. He changes the dynamic of that team.
Well, that's why I can't wait to see that matchup, one of the big games to see, because tactically Berhalter is very smart. How he approaches that game. I think Atlanta's had difficult times when teams have dropped off and been very compact and not allowed them space because they want to play so much, especially feeding off that atmosphere. They push numbers forward, and then I think they're vulnerable in transition where they can hurt them, and I think that Berhalter is very smart to have seen that, and it'll be interesting to see how he approaches that match.
And listen, if unless the Red Bulls upset the Fire, the prize for winning that game is going to play Toronto, a team that set the record for most points in a season. We don't talk about it very much right now. But this is maybe the best team in MLS history. If they go on to win MLS Cup, I think that people will say that about this team. So it's not going to be easy for anyone in the East because the road does run through Toronto.
When you look at Atlanta, is their weakness the back line? I mean, they have so many good players in the midfield and up front. I guess if they have a weakness, it would have to be the back line.
I think their weakness is the fullback position. If they're healthy at center back, I like the Parkhurst-Perez pairing. I think they're two very good players. I think Perez, for me, is an MLS best 11 center back. Parkhurst is injured. He's going to be a game-time decision. If they don't have Michael Parkhurst, it becomes a much more difficult task for them because they don't really have a natural backup at that spot. Do they slide Jeff Laurentowicz from defensive midfield back into the back line? Now you change the midfield. Do you slide in the young kid Anton Walks from right back into center back? Well, now you're changing a fullback, and you have to bring Tyrone Mears in. He hasn't played in a while. It's not going to be easy for them if Parkhurst can't go. That's a big X factor in this game.
Yeah, but I agree with you with the outside backs, because if Garza's not there either, I think they played different guys, but I think that's a different team with Garza back. Parkhurst, I mean, that you don't want to change things going into the preseason. It worked so well, but Perez, he's been solid for them, and I think, the save that I saw Guzan make, in that Red Bulls game, I mean, he's a guy that's always going to keep you into games.
Yeah, I just wrote an article for 442. I think Atlanta and how they get better next year, I think you'll see them shopping for fullbacks. I think you'll see them add another center back to the competition, another defensive midfielder, and don't be surprised to see them add another piece in the final third, and a big one.
How many can they have?
Yeah, we'll see.
How many balls around the field at once? We talk so much about TFC throughout the course of the year. Let's look at NYCFC, because Patrick Vieira-led team. They're a team that, I don't know, going in, did you expect them to be where they finishing second, not only in the East, but in overall points in the league?
Listen, for me, I think you look at the changes that they've made, and I think when the teams that, when you finish second, you finish third, you deserve to be there, because you've been consistent throughout the whole year. And then I think that Vieira has done a great job, the pieces that he's brought in, but also his ability now to coach them, and to coach them to difficult situations also. He's been very smart, and you can see the impact that he's had on the team.
Look, I think being transparent, I voted for Patrick Vieira as my MLS Coach of the Year, because I think that he's done a remarkable job building this team from what it was in the first year. They're much, much different and much better this year. He's handled a DP that he put on the bench in Pirlo, not an easy thing to do. Brought in some young pieces in Ring and Herrera, a blessing to have Herrera on a low number coming from Manchester City. But then he's also used some MLS guys to make this team better. Guys like getting Ben Sweat to play the way he's played for this team this year. I mean, that's a guy that I think was on the waiver wire. So, credit to Vieira for coaching a guy like that up.
Playoffs begin tomorrow, Wednesday night. The Chicago Fire taking on the New York Red Bulls, a game you can see by going on out to Toyota Park. Get your tickets, chicago-fire.com, and you can also walk on up to Toyota Park for the game. It is a 7:30 start, and we'll also take a look at the Western Conference when we come back, and that schedule that you briefly saw. We'll look at the whole thing when we come back. It's Chicago Fire Weekly, and we're presented by CIBC.
We don't give up. We don't quit. We keep going. Day in, day out. We fight on. Why? Because we are champions. Be a champion.
Why would you go out of your way and wander around a warehouse for paint when you can just swing by your local Ace? Ace has top-rated paint like Valspar, can match any color, and mixes it with something that's hard to find. Award-winning service, because the way we see it, if anyone is going to go out of their way,
it should be us.
It's the Ace Extra Mile promise. If it ever takes more than one trip to complete your paint project, we'll bring you what you need, and delivery is free.
Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks.
NovaCare is the right choice for all athletes. As the exclusive provider of physical therapy to the Chicago Fire, we know the importance of keeping you active. Our sports medicine program, along with our movement assessments, aids us in finding your weak link and designing a program for you. We offer a full array of home care products so you can continue your care when you're not here. To request an appointment at any of our convenient Chicago locations, visit NovaCare.com today. NovaCare, the power of physical therapy.
Chicago Fire Weekly is presented by CIBC. Fred Hubner, Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez. We are thrilled to be doing a playoff preview edition of Chicago Fire Weekly as we take a look at the bracket for the playoffs. They all begin tomorrow. We know about the Chicago Red Bulls game, 7:30 at Toyota Park. We discussed Atlanta and Columbus. You can't really say which team's going to play. I guess it's always the highest to the lowest, correct?
That's right. The low seed will go on to play Toronto, the low seed remaining. The higher seed will play NYCFC. Same goes in the West, which we'll talk about now. San Jose pulls off an upset against the Vancouver team that I think is maybe one of the most overrated teams, overseeded teams in the playoffs. They would go on to play Portland, and then the winner of Houston, Kansas City would play Seattle. But if Kansas City pulls the upset and Vancouver holds home court, then Kansas City would head over to Portland. So it all depends on the results.
When we were here last week, we were talking about the Western Conference and who we thought was going to be able to grab that last spot. There was Dallas. There was the RSL. And San Jose gets a big 3-2 win. They grab that last spot. Nice to see for San Jose, a team that we didn't think was going to be here. At least I didn't think was going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team with a minus 21 goal differential, the worst goal differential in MLS history to make the playoffs. It's not the best show for MLS to have a team with that kind of goal differential making the playoffs, but I think also it speaks to the epic collapse of FC Dallas down the stretch. I mean, this is a team, if you guys remember, this season started watching FC Dallas really compete in the CONCACAF Champions League. I mean, they were right there as one of the best teams, not just in MLS, but in North America, competing with the best teams in Mexico, and they just totally fell off a cliff. And, I mean, you can look at a number of different factors. I think ownership played a role in turning down the transfer offer for Rudy and Barrios for $5 million, two players that wanted to go. How does that impact the locker room? I think it falls on Oscar Pareja, not able to get his locker room back together, not able to find the right formation, the right lineup. He kept changing things up. Terrible, terrible disaster there in Dallas. We'll see what happens going forward there. And then RSL. Awful start to the season for RSL. Mike Petke comes in. The U.S. under-20 kids come back from World Cup, and suddenly they look like a much better team, and they nearly made the playoffs. I was kind of rooting for RSL because I thought they were the most deserving team over the back half of the season, and they fell just short.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just leave it exactly with the way Paul left it. I mean,
let's look at the games because there's two games. Vancouver, who had a chance, they were playing Portland last week. Whoever won was going to win the West.
Well, listen, I'll set this up here. I'll tell you, with Portland, I think is a deserving 1 seed, and Seattle a 2 seed. But Portland could end up with a really difficult matchup in their first game in the semifinal. A Sporting Kansas City team, Frank, that I think is probably the second or third best team in this conference, and they might have to play Portland. That's a heck of a matchup.
It is, but anyway you look at, when you look at these games, I'll just make my predictions. I mean, off the bat, I'll take Vancouver. I think they're going to get through San Jose in this early match, and I think for me, I take KC over Houston. But I still feel like out of the West, the team, you know, as much as I like KC, I think that when you look at the team defensively, they're excellent team, but in the end, it says, you know, you look at it and you say, how are they going to get goals? Who's a consistent goal scorer there? And, you know, I just feel like Portland, in a matchup like that, I just think they have also a lot of quality and intimidating place to play there. And, you know, Valeri, you know, the season he's had, I just think they have a lot of pieces going forward. Coming out of the West, I'm going to take Portland.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. And Frank, an X factor, we talked about this at lunch, a guy who you give a lot of credit to for Sporting Kansas City's season, Tim Melia, the goalkeeper. He is not going to play on Thursday in Houston. He's still hurt. That's a big loss for Peter Vermees's team.
I agree with you 100%. But when I looked at the games before the Fire played them, you know, when I looked at the KC game there in Houston, I felt they dominated that game. They had so many chances. And that's why you're saying, like, how are they going to score the goals? You know, and then obviously you go back to the game in KC. I mean, they had 15, 20 chances to score. They came up with some unbelievable saves. So defensively, they don't give you much, but it's like in games in the playoffs, you know, you got to have the ability that one guy that you get maybe 1 or 2 chances, you got to put them away because, you know, defensively they can lock things down.
Yeah, and a big loss for Houston today, too.
Yeah.
They learned A.J. De La Garza is out for the season with a torn ACL. One of the good guys in this league. Really tough to hear about his injury suffered against the Fire in the season finale. So how do they recover from that emotionally? But then also, I mean, this is a guy who wore the captain's armband for them sits in the middle of that back line, a big piece of the rebuild there in Houston. That's a tough loss right at the start of the playoffs.
Yeah, I had a feeling they knew it. I was listening to Sirius, and they had Jalil Anibaba on after the game, and you could tell how distraught the players were from losing him. Now, Anibaba, a former Fire player, actually stepped in. Did you see anything?
Frank drafted him.
Yeah, did you see anything in Houston when you were down there? We haven't talked about the 3-0 loss for a good reason. But did you see anything that led you to believe that Houston maybe can make a move or make a stepper against? I know you picked them to lose, but did you see anything from them?
I just think it's a team. I think when you look at Houston, I think it's a team that especially at home, they're a counter-attacking team. They push numbers forward. I think in that game, I think Clark didn't play against Chicago. They played only Cabezas. They played Alexander in the middle. So I felt, Chicago dominated the game in the middle. They just couldn't find a goal. They give up that easy goal, I think, from a throw-in out of nothing. And then, and then in the second half, they were in it. They had 67% possession. They had some opportunities. It's just a matter of getting that goal. It didn't happen. You give up the second one, the game is over then. But, look, they're a threat there at home because of their pace. They have Torres, they have Kyoto, they have Ellis, guys that can hurt you on the break, and then Martinez, Alex, they're quality in the final third. But they do give up chances the other way.
Frank, I don't want to get you in trouble, but I don't think MLS can fine you anymore like they could when you were a coach. So I'm just going to throw this out there. Clint Dempsey gets the red card. Then he goes into the referee's face. He applauds. He goes forehead to forehead with the guy that he fouled. He threw an elbow at. He shouts at the ref as he walks off the field. MLS disciplinary committee comes out today. Clint Dempsey is not on it, so they're not adding a second game of suspension to Clint Dempsey. Do you think it's because he's Clint Dempsey, he's a star? It could be his last game in Seattle if they lose that series, that they don't suspend him?
You know what I'm going to say? In Montreal, when I got all those suspensions, the owner said, Frank, don't worry, I'll pay for everything. So right now, I'm just going to give, I know I'm not going to get suspended. I'm not going to say anything. Best sometimes to avoid stuff.
We come back, we will take a look at the season as it wrapped up, the regular season, the playoffs just getting underway. Also take a look at some possible MLS awards to be handed out. You're watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC.
The 2017 Nissan Rogue, with available automatic emergency braking that could help stop for you. And motion-activated liftgate. You still got some tricks left in you. Take on today the Nissan Rogue family. Lease today, starting at just $159 per month, or get 0% financing for up to 60 months on 12 models.
Sometimes late at night, I get a craving. And when I get like this, there's only one man who can satisfy my needs. Mr. Sub.
Mr. Submarine is open late every night. Whenever the urge strikes for a tasty sandwich with delicious ingredients on bakery fresh Toronto bread, dive into deliciousness with Mr. Submarine.
When my hair is too long, I don't feel right. But when I get a cut, I'm me again, only better. My tattoo gets feistier. My crazy eye snaps to attention. I become my own Wi-Fi hotspot.
I just downloaded the entire internet.
And trust falls? They don't even scare me anymore.
That pomade really broke my fall.
Get in, get out, back to greatness. Download the online check-in app. Great clips. It's gonna be great.
Go inside the lives of Chicago's biggest sports stars, only on Inside Look, presented by Cadillac. Your questions answered.
They got this big because basketball got this big.
Idols revisited.
They bring the atmosphere and the energy that you need throughout the grind of the season.
And the stories behind the headlines revealed.
Definitely a moment that I'll never forget.
Catch a new interview every month with Inside Look on NBC Sports Chicago. Visit NBCSportsChicago.com for listings.
Welcome back. Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC, taking a look at the season in review very quickly. We'll look at some of the awards, but the Golden Boot, that's decided on the pitch. There's no voting for the Golden Boot. We saw Nemanja Nikolic. He did not score in the last game, but you know what? 24 and the hat trick before that. He comes over here. Was it the fourth time now? He's led fourth consecutive year. He's led his league in goal scoring.
Yeah, I mean, across 3 different leagues in 3 different countries, it's a pretty impressive. It's incredibly impressive feat.
That's what I was going to say. It's incredible. And sometimes coming into a new league, you know, you need some time to adjust. And for him to come in here first year, and I know that it's not only about him, it's about the team. And it's great to see the season he's had, you know, combine that with also the team season overall. But scoring 24 goals in your first season here, it's not easy. And you know what? It's incredible season for him and for the team.
I think I'd also like to give some credit to the people around him. I was looking at some stats earlier today, and I saw David Accam had 4 assists to Nikolic. Brandon Vincent had 4 assists to Nikolic. Michael DeLue had 3 assists to Nikolic. I think 10 different players have provided multiple assists this season for the Fire. It goes to show that a lot of guys adjusted to a striker that is very dependent on service. All 24 goals for Nikolic came inside of the box. And I think a lot of guys recognized that and learned how to play with that. So a credit to David Accam, Michael DeLue, 2 goal scorers who also became facilitators. And then also Brandon Vincent, a young player who I think has become an essential part of the way this team plays getting forward. And Matt Polster as well from the fullback spot. But the guy scores the goals, man. That's the
what
money.
they got him
that's
for.
Where the money goes.
But
to.
you know what? Where goes inside the box. Put the ball in there. Make the hard runs. That's what he does, and then he gets rewarded for it.
He does. Let's take a look quickly at some of the other awards. Let's go start with MVP.
I have Diego Valeria. I voted for Diego Valeria as my MVP. I thought he carried Portland for most of this season. Fernando Adi was out with injuries. Other guys were out. For me, Valeria was the clear choice.
Yeah, listen, I think you got to put Nikolic in the conversation. You can't argue about that. But if he doesn't win MVP, if you look at Newcomer of the Year, there's no way you cannot give this award. 24 goals in his first season. I know there's been other guys, Almiron and Martinez. He's been injured. The output he's had. But as a newcomer in the league to come in and have 24 goals and score the Golden Boot, I think he's got to be in conversation for both awards.
Okay, we're running short on time. Defender of the Year. Just give me your Defender of the Year.
For me, I put Johan Kappelhoff.
Okay.
I had Iko Para.
Okay. Goalkeeper of the Year.
I put Milia for KC, and I think that's why he made Opara look good. He made all those saves.
Milia for sure.
And last, Coach of the Year.
I said it earlier. I had Patrick Vieira.
I was going to put Tata Martinez, from Atlanta coming in, but also you can, you got to look also the job that this guy Vanny has done in Toronto to break, you got to give him some props also.
The Chicago Fire with their knockout round playoff game tomorrow night. Get on out there as they play the New York Red Bulls. 7:30 kick. For tickets, you can visit chicago-fire.com/tickets. Call 888-MLS-FIRE. Or you can just stroll on up to Toyota Park. They'll be more than happy to sell you a ticket for the exciting contest tomorrow night. Hopefully they get a victory. Then they advance to the conference semifinals. That would be great to see. If they win, they will go forward and play at New York City FC. Paul Tenorio, Frank Lopez, we'll all be out there tomorrow, hopefully trying to stay dry. Thanks a lot for watching Chicago Fire Weekly, presented by CIBC, the official bank of your Chicago Fire.